All right, welcome back. Learning Objective 4. Discuss the Hoover administration and the Depression. So, there have been signs that, as we discussed earlier, of the weaknesses in the economy before 1929. A good part of the productive system depended on a high rate of consumption. Yet, as we have pointed out, much of the population suffered from low incomes. Furthermore, the speculative boom inflated values and credits and linked prosperity to future expectations rather than to current realities. So the ability to keep business going rested on the faith that prices would continue to rise. So Hoover's attempt to deal with the Depression can be broken down into three phases. First phase, Hoover felt the economy was sound and just needed confidence. Thus, government should not interfere with business. He took steps to prevent the spread of the Depression. In a series of conferences, he tried to persuade business leaders to keep wages and prices up voluntarily. Business did, but when consumption and trade fell off, they simply just laid people off. Second phase, as the Depression got worse, Hoover was determined to keep government small and relief at the local level. And the third phase, Hoover endorsed a compromise relief program with the establishment of the Reconstruction Finance Corporation, or the RFC. The RFC lent money or gave relief loans and started public works programs. However, it only put $1.2 billion into circulation within a 6-month span. As the Depression deepened, the view grew among voters that Hoover was do-nothing president and had done too little, too late. Yet the impression of Hoover as a do-nothing president is definitely a false one. Hoover's administration did more in its attempt to bring about recovery than any previous administration, either Republican or Democrat, in earlier economic depressions. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, FDR, continued some of Hoover's policies, including RFC. The problem was neither Hoover nor anyone else did enough fast enough to reverse the downward spiral from 1929 to 1933. In many cases, Hoover was following what was thought to be the best policies. The problem was just way too complex for any one administration to deal with. Hoover's economic philosophy, as well as that of most fellow Republicans and huge sections of the Democratic Party, greatly inhibited his attack on the Depression. His most important inhibition was his conception of the role of the federal government in the economy. Hoover believed that the sole function of the government was to bring about a condition of affairs favorable to the beneficial development of private enterprise. He held tight, however, to the view that for the federal government to reform or reorganize the economy, even when the economy obviously did not function well, would inevitably mean a loss of individual freedom. Thus, all Hoover could do was work within his fundamental framework and hope for economic improvement, which failed to materialize. Hoover firmly believed that direct aid to poverty-stricken people was not a legitimate function of the federal government. All aid to the needy, he maintained, was the responsibility of state and local governments and of private charity. As far as the federal government's activities were concerned, he placed a higher value on the security of private property than on the welfare of human beings. Individual welfare improved only indirectly under Hoover's policy. Hoover believed in, trickle-down theory economics, as we discussed earlier. For example, Hoover's administration lent huge amounts to banks and railroads, on whose condition the welfare of thousands of individuals was partially dependent. Franklin Roosevelt came up with a direct aid at low levels to spur consumption to pull industry out of its slump. So he was for what's called Keynesian economics, FDR, Hoover for trickle-down theory. All humanitarian considerations aside, economically, the trickle-down method of federal aid was not as effective in combating the Depression as direct aid to low-income groups would have been, the grassroots approach or Keynesian approach. The poor, after all, would have spent their aid very quickly, thereby lubricating the economy. So basically, this is just to recap the final part of this lecture. We'll pick up on the Depression when we look at the New Deal in the next lecture series. So thanks for playing, and I'll see you in the next lecture series. Talk to you later.